You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
And now, a message from our sponsor, Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Enterprises have spent billions of dollars on firewalls and VPNs, yet breaches continue to rise by an 18% year-over-year increase in ransomware attacks and a $75 million record payout in 2024. These traditional security tools expand your attack surface with public-facing IPs that are exploited by bad actors more easily than ever with AI tools. It's time to rethink your security. Zscaler Zero Trust plus AI stops attackers by hiding your attack surface, making apps and IPs invisible, eliminating lateral movement, connecting users only to specific apps, not the entire network, continuously verifying every request based on identity and context, simplifying security management with AI-powered automation, and detecting threats using AI to analyze over 500 billion daily transactions. Hackers can't attack what they can't see. Protect your organization with Zscaler Zero Trust and AI. Learn more at zscaler.com/security.
Today is March 14th, 2025. Happy Pi Day. I'm Maria Varmazes, and this is T-Minus.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS Egress. Go for deploy. Roger roll. Live.
Ursa Major and Palantir announce a warp speed partnership.
4.
SpaceX gears up for the Transporter 13 rideshare mission.
3.
Rocket Lab shores up its in-house satellite software suites.
2.
U.S. Air Force says ULA performed unsatisfactorily in a new report.
1.
NASA's trying again for a Pi Day Crew 10 launch. And it's Friday, so that means our partners at nasaspaceflight.com will have the space traffic report for us later in the show, rounding up the launch news from the last 7 days and taking a look ahead at what's to come in the next 7 days. Happy Friday, everybody, and happy Pi Day. Here's your intel briefing for today before the weekend. If at first you don't launch, try again. Due to a scrub from technical issues earlier this week and then unfavorable weather conditions, the launch of Crew 10 to the International Space Station is set for another launch attempt tonight at 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Should all go to plan, a SpaceX Falcon 9 will take the 4 crew in a Dragon spacecraft to the ISS, and then they'll join the Expedition 7273 crew, with an expected docking time of 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. Crew 9, with Nick Hague, Sonny Williams, and Butch Wilmore, should be undocking from the ISS for their return home next Wednesday, March 19th, on the Dragon that has been docked for quite some time to the ISS. See? Not stranded. The U.S. Air Force has rated United Launch Alliance's performance on its national security space launch obligations as unsatisfactory, citing delays in transitioning to the new Vulcan rocket. According to the annual report on the highest and lowest performing acquisitions programs mandated by Congress and obtained by Bloomberg News, the Air Force says it's evaluating whether to reassign Vulcan missions to another provider. Not a long list of alternatives, one can probably easily guess that it means SpaceX. ULA faced setbacks in 2024 despite completing 2 Vulcan test flights, which were required for certification to carry national security payloads. And you may also remember the October 2024 test flight for ULA certification was a qualified success, with the mission technically complete, but an anomaly affected one of the Vulcan's solid rocket boosters, which ULA has since attributed to a manufacturing defect that the company says has since corrected. For its part, though, the Air Force says the investigation into the anomaly took longer than it should have due to limited engineering resources at ULA. Still, a final decision on Vulcan's certification is expected soon. Keeping on our theme of launch providers, Rocket Lab has been on a roll this week, and today Rocket Lab introduced Intermission and Max Constellation, which are two advanced space software suites designed for autonomous, secure, and scalable mission operations. The company says these platforms enhance their existing space systems capabilities. Now, Intermission is a real-time ground data and space operations platform with built-in security, while Max Constellation expands the company's flight software for Constellation-class programs, integrating high-fidelity digital twin simulations. Both systems are available for the Constellation Onboard Computer by Beyond Gravity, with the goal of simplifying satellite operations as an off-the-shelf integrated solution combining avionics, flight software, and ground operations in one package. And we're still keeping with the launch theme today, why not? If you happen to be up late in the United States tonight, at 11:39 p.m. Pacific Time at Vandenberg Space Force Base, the next SpaceX smallsat rideshare mission should be launched. This one is Transporter 13, and SpaceX says there are 74 payloads aboard, including CubeSats, microsats, hosted payloads, a re-entry capsule, and an orbital transfer vehicle carrying 11 of those payloads to be deployed at a later time. We usually find out the bulk of what's on a transporter mission after everything launches and deploys, but of what we know ahead of time this time, one of the missions includes a Sidus Space LizzieSat-3 to add to Sidus's growing constellation, which the company says is equipped with an onboard AI platform called Orlaith to deliver near real-time insights processed directly from low Earth orbit, providing rapid asset detection, identification, and classification. Should the Transporter 13 launch as expected, we'll have more details on what deployed throughout our Intel briefings next week. And finally, Ursa Major and Palantir have partnered to integrate Palantir's Warp Speed manufacturing operating system into Ursa Major's rocket propulsion manufacturing process. The collaboration aims to enhance the efficiency and speed of producing advanced propulsion systems for hypersonic and solid rocket motors. By fully integrating Warp Speed, Ursa Major seeks to deliver cost-effective, mission-critical hardware more rapidly, aligning with U.S. national security objectives. And that is it for this Friday Intel briefing for you. And we have a slew of other stories that didn't make the cut if you'd like to do some over-the-weekend reading. There's an announcement from Black Sky on their first AI-enabled analytics from very high-res imagery just 3 weeks after launch. An update on what kinds of space weaponry that the Space Force is looking out for. And a shot of the Biomass satellite due to launch aboard a Vega C, which has rolled into the European spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana. Some neat pictures of that too if you'd like to check them out. Links are all in the show notes for you and at space.n2k.com. Hey T-Minus crew, tune in tomorrow for T-Minus Deep Space, our show for extended interviews, special editions, and deep dives with some of the most influential professionals in the space industry. Tomorrow we have Brendan Rousseau and Matthew Weinzierl talking about their new book, Space to Grow. Check it out while you're eating delicious pies, perhaps left over from your Pi Day celebrations with or without ice cream, or I don't know, finding something green to wear for Monday, or perhaps just recovering from a lot of business meetings at SpaceCom or Satellite 2025. Either way, it's a great chat, and you don't want to miss it.
Hey everybody, Dave here. Have you ever wondered where your personal information is lurking online? Like many of you, I was concerned about my data being sold by data brokers. So I decided to try Delete Me. I have to say, Delete Me is a game changer. Within days of signing up, they started removing my personal information from hundreds of data brokers. I finally have peace of mind knowing my data privacy is protected. Delete Me's team does all the work for you with detailed reports, so you know exactly what's been done. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and enter code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K.
Fridays at T- mean our partners at NSF have the space traffic report for you. Here's Alicia Siegel with more.
I'm Alicia Siegel for NSF, and this is your weekly space traffic report for T-Space. We're starting off the week with spaceplane news. On March 7th, the X-37B returned from its secretive OTV-7 mission, touching down on the runway of Vandenberg Space Force Base in California at 6:22 UTC. The spaceplane started its mission in the final days of 2023 when it was launched on a Falcon Heavy. It became the first spaceplane to launch beyond low Earth orbit into a highly elliptical orbit. Throughout its time in space, it performed several tests and demonstrations for the Space Force, including an aerobraking maneuver, during which it skimmed through the upper atmosphere to lower its orbit in October of last year. After spending over 434 days in space, this particular X-37B wrapped up its fourth and shortest mission. This was the second shortest flown by either of the two spacecraft and the seventh in the program. A Changzheng 3B launched from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center in China on March 9th at 17:17 UTC. The rocket lifted a classified satellite for testing communication technology into geostationary transfer orbit. A few days later, on March 11th, a Changzheng 8 launched from the commercial side of China's Wenchang Space Launch Site. The payload on this mission was a batch of 18 communication satellites for the Qianfan constellation of Internet satellites, which is also known as G60 or Space Sail. The next day, Falcon 9 took to the skies in California to launch two science missions for NASA. The first of these is the Spectrophotometer for the History of the Universe Epoch of Reionization and Ices Explorer, or SPHEREX for short. The telescope will survey the sky in search of the source of the universe's early inflation and organic molecules throughout the universe. The telescope features a distinct set of cone-shaped photon shields that keep the spacecraft's sensitive infrared instruments cold. 4 suitcase-sized satellites for NASA's PUNCH mission also hitched a ride on this launch. PUNCH is short for Polarimeter to Unify the Corona and Heliosphere, and as the name implies, the mission will study the sun's heliosphere and corona. Falcon 9 lifted off with the 5 satellites on board on March 12th at 3:10 Universal Time. The booster on this mission, B-1088, flew for the third time and landed successfully at Landing Zone 4. On March 12th, the European Space Agency's Hera mission flew by Mars for a so-called gravity assist. The spacecraft is on its way to study asteroid Didymos and its companion Dimorphos, but it needed a little help to get onto the right path. That help came from the red planet, whose gravitational pull changed Hera's trajectory as the spacecraft flew just 5,000 kilometers from the planet's surface. As Hera swung by Mars, it used 3 of its science instruments to observe the planet and its moon Deimos, which Hera passed by at a mere 1,000 kilometers. This provided an excellent opportunity for the mission scientists to test the performance of these instruments, and it gave us some amazing pictures too. We also had a Starlink launch from Florida this week. Falcon 9 lifted off at 2:35 UTC on March 13th, carrying 13 Starlink direct-to-cell satellites and 8 regular Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Booster B-1069 flew its 22nd flight on this mission, and it landed successfully on the deck of SpaceX's drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas. With this mission, SpaceX has launched a total of 8,085 Starlink satellites, of which 990 have found their way back to Earth, and 6,409 have moved into their operational orbits. Going into next week, we'll have the launch of the Crew 10 mission to the International Space Station on March 14th. Falcon 9 is set to lift off from Historic Launch Complex 39A at 23:03 UTC with Crew Dragon Endurance on top. The mission was originally supposed to launch earlier this week, but was scrubbed due to an issue with hydraulics on ground support systems. The commander of the crew of 4 is NASA astronaut Anne McClain, who will be accompanied by the mission's pilot, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, and mission specialist JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi and Russian cosmonaut Kirill Peskov. Dragon is set to arrive at the station on March 16th at 3:30 UTC. Following this, the crews will take part in a short handover period during which the previous crew will help the new arrivals familiarize themselves with life on board the space station. Crew 9 will then depart the station on March 19th. Crew Dragon Freedom will undock from the ISS with Nick Hague and Alexander Gorbunov on board, as well as the 2 Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. Freedom will return to Earth and splash down off the coast of Florida. If the schedule holds, March 15th promises to be a very busy day with 6 launches if you set your clock to UTC. The first of these will be an Electron mission from Rocket Lab's own spaceport in New Zealand. This launch is set to carry a synthetic aperture radar satellite into low Earth orbit for the Japanese company IQPS. The mission is dubbed The Lightning God Reigns and is expected to lift off during a 2-hour window opening at midnight UTC on March 15th. Next, we'll have a launch from China. Around 4:10 Universal Time, a Changzheng 2D is expected to lift off from the Zhochuan Satellite Launch Center. For the next mission, we'll go to California, where a Falcon 9 will launch the next transporter mission of SpaceX's small-sat rideshare program. This mission is set to carry dozens of small satellites, including a number of science missions, into sun-synchronous orbit. Transporter 13 is scheduled to lift off during a 46-minute window opening at 6:39 UTC. Over on the other side of the country, we'll also have a Starlink mission on March 15th. Falcon 9 is set to carry another batch of Starlink direct-to-cell satellites into low Earth orbit, lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40 during a 4-hour window opening at 10:28 UTC. Just 2 minutes later, the window opens for an Angara 1.2 launch from Plisetsk in Russia. The payload on this mission is a Russian military satellite. And the last mission scheduled for March 15th is the 6th launch of Firefly's Alpha rocket. This mission will be conducted from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California and will lift Lockheed Martin's LM-400 technology demonstrator into low Earth orbit. Liftoff is scheduled during a 52-minute window opening at 13:25 Universal Time. NSF will be providing the launch livestream production services for Alpha's 6th flight, with YouTube coverage starting approximately 30 minutes before liftoff. On March 17th, a Series 1 is expected to lift off from Site 95A at the Zhochuan Satellite Launch Center in China. T0 for this mission is scheduled around 8:10 UTC. Then back in New Zealand, another Electron is set to take to the skies on March 18th. This launch will deliver the final batch of Internet of Things satellites into low Earth orbit for the French company Kinéis. With the addition of these last 5 satellites, the constellation will be completed after 5 launches. So, Rocket Lab fittingly named the mission High 5. Liftoff is expected at 1:31 UTC. Later that day, SpaceX plans to launch another batch of Starlinks from Florida. The 4-hour launch window for this mission opens at 18:09 Universal Time on March 18th. For the next launch, Falcon 9 is expected to lift off from California on March 20th. The payload on this mission will likely be the next batch of Starshield satellites for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office's proliferated architecture. This mission is set to lift off during a nearly 2.5-hour window opening at 6:02 Universal Time. Back up on the International Space Station, another vehicle is set to depart next week. On March 21st, at 11:35 Universal Time, the Cygnus NG-21 cargo vehicle will separate from the station. Its final task will be to dispose of waste as it burns up on re-entry in Earth's atmosphere. I'm Alicia Siegel for NSF, and that's your weekly space traffic report. Now back to T-Minus Space.
We'll be right back.
Cyber threats are more sophisticated than ever. Passwords, they're outdated and can be cracked in a minute. Cyber criminals are intercepting SMS codes and bypassing authentication apps. While businesses invest in network security, they often overlook the front door, the login. Yubico believes the future is passwordless. YubiKeys offer unparalleled protection against phishing for individuals, SMBs, and enterprises. They deliver a fast, frictionless experience that users love. Yubico is offering N2K followers a limited buy one, get one offer. Visit yubico.com/N2K to unlock this deal. That's YUBICO. Say no to modern cyber threats. Upgrade your security today.
Welcome back. Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost lander continues to make history on the moon. While some of us enjoyed last night's blood moon and lunar eclipse, Blue Ghost was looking at the same thing from the lunar vantage point. And when you're on the moon, it's not a lunar eclipse, it's a solar eclipse. Blue Ghost snapped an incredible shot of the diamond ring effect as the Earth momentarily blocked the sun, creating a glowing ring in the sky, an event that has been captured by previous lunar missions, but never before observed by a commercial mission on the moon specifically. So check that box for another first there. Firefly's lander also managed to capture the eclipse's first moments as the Earth's shadow crept over the sun, with the reflection glinting off of its solar panels. And if that wasn't enough, NASA's Scalps cameras caught stunning footage of the lander's descent, showing its engine plumes interacting with the moon's surface, which is all critical data for future missions. With more images and insights expected soon, Firefly is proving that even in the darkness of space, there's always something brilliant to see. That's it for T-Minus for March 14th, 2025, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. For additional resources from today's report, check out our show notes at space.n2k.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. If you like the show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to space@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I am your host, Maria Varmazis. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic weekend.